so upset.
Hello. All right. The Borderland of Tragedy. Page 11. What is first circled discernible, which means to see, in this no man's land that surrounds the abyss is its menacing and horrid aspect. When one comes finally to the dark tower, as Browning would have it in Childe Roland, the dark river came, it has been by enduring ugly little rivers containing possible corpses of infants, ancient memories of human sacrifice, long hidden out of sight, remind the audience of the shared communal guilt. Highlight. Cassandra in the Oresteia acknowledges this liminal region and intuits the abyss beyond it. When caught like an animal and prodded to go to her own slaughter, she looks up on the rooftop and makes the apparitions of horror stop. So circle liminal there. Liminal means the boundary region. So liminal is the space between, I'm going to take the video over here, the space between the city and the abyss. So the liminal space is this space right here. It's the last, basically space, it's the last area of safety before you get into the abyss. So we are watching the people fall into the abyss. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon on one side, and you're like, there's no railing there or anything, and you're standing there, and the people on the other side are like just jumping in. And at the bottom is not the Colorado River, but basically corpses of bodies, bloody rivers, dead babies, people eating each other. Because what she's in the abyss, all of the bad things that humans have ever done to each other happens. And this realization that we're capable of these kinds of things is brought to the surface. So what she's going to say in the next page is the inside of your soul comes to the surface and it shows itself. So when the poet or the tragedian, the person who writes the tragedies, brings this information out of the abyss because somehow they've caught a ladder and they can climb out of the abyss, they bring it back into the city, and we're like, nah, we don't want that. Too dark. Go away. Let's get some Hallmark movies on the TV. Right? We don't... And if you think about it, until people can collectively acknowledge their communal guilt for the things that they've done, then you can never move on, right? You can't, if you have to have that accountability. What she's saying is that the Greeks had the accountability because they watched these tragedies together, and they learned through the stage play, the drama, how to be better and how to, like when real life things happen, how to move on together. Americans probably have never acknowledged our communal guilt, our primal and original sin of slavery and the taking of Native American lands, right? We've never really acknowledged that and offered any sort of communal growth from that. And so we are still struggling. We're struggling with that to this day, right? So that's what the liminal space is. What does she mean by Cassandra? Well, there's a long story that goes with this. I should probably give you a little bit of background. Cassandra was the war prize of Agamemnon. Agamemnon was the king of the kings of the Greeks. He's the one who led the troops to Troy to fight in the Trojan War. His brother, Menelaus, is the one who was married to Helen. Well, what happened to Helen? She was stolen, probably willfully went with the beautiful Paris of Troy to Troy. What did Agamemnon do to get the wind to go to Troy? Killed his daughter. That made his wife super mad, as you can imagine. Her name is Clytemnestra. So 10 years after, for 10 years, Clytemnestra is plotting revenge upon her husband. So when he gets back with bearing his war prize, Cassandra, who has been cursed, actually. Why has she been cursed? She was cursed by the god Apollo because she wouldn't sleep with him. So he says, woman, if you won't sleep with me, I'll give you this curse, the curse of truth. You'll be able to tell the truth. You'll be able to see the future, and no one will believe you. That's called the curse of Cassandra. Don't name your kids Cassandra. Beautiful name, but don't do it. Do we have any Cassandras in here right now? Okay. Anyway, just call her Cassie. So Cassandra tells Agamemnon, don't go into your wife's house because she's fixing to kill you. And he's like, you don't know what you're talking about, because it's a tragedy and women aren't listened to in a tragedy. They can only tell the truth and no one listens to them. So literally, in the text, it says, Clytemnestra rolls out the red tapestry, the red carpet, for Agamemnon to walk on. So walking on the red carpet is not a good thing. This is an ancient it's a reference to being killed by your spouse, or being just dishonor and horror in general. So he's like, whatever. And he goes in anyway, because Clytemnestra pours him a bath and then proceeds to basically chop him up. She's like super psycho on him. And Cassandra right here, it says, acknowledges the liminal region, so basically walking into the abyss, and intuits the abyss beyond it when caught like an animal and prodded to go into her own slaughter. So she's like, she knows what's going to happen, but she goes in anyway. She just walks into her own slaughter. Why does it say the mutilated children, bodies half-eaten, blood staining the palace roof, cries out against the house that hates God, the echoing womb of guilt, kinsmen torturing kinsmen, severed heads, slaughterhouses of heroes, soil streaming blood, and the calls of murdered children? Next page, top of 12. And quoting Cassandra in the Agamemnon, see my witnesses, I trust to them, to the babies wailing, skewered on the sword, their flesh charred, the father gorging on their parts. Agamemnon's house, called the house of Atreus, that's his father, Atreus. Atreus killed his own brother's children and fed them to him in a soup. People do bad things to each other. Okay, highlight this. Human sacrifice and torture are border images implied in all the tragedies. Sometimes made overt, as in the Oresteia. That's what we're talking about. Sometimes hidden, as in the Oedipus. Stop. Robert Miola, blah, 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 blah. Go down to the middle of the paragraph with the word Cassandra, not only. You see it? Highlight this. Cassandra not only apprehends the fearful past, child murder, etc., but at the same moment recognizes the power of the gods. She herself is inexorably to be slain, along with the man who has captured and violated her. Stop. Next paragraph. Peering over. See it? Highlight. Peering over from the edge, the chorus and the audience, that's us, watch the inescapable transported to the realm of the unsayable. Authentic experience of the tragic threshold in its enactment before us is so stark and so demanding as not to be governed by the imagination, that ingenious mediator between spirit and flesh. The devastating effect of tragedy, in fact, may be related to the utter consequences, separateness of it in the mind and the senses. Sorry, I can't read. I gotta get my glasses. Keep highlighting. Tragedy, as it is experienced, is of the innards, as Ruth Padel translates the Greek word sploncha, the brain, the liver, the heart, the bowels. Tragedy's language, she writes, stresses that whatever is within us is obscure, multifaceted, and impossible to see. Stop. So tragedy says, really, I'll accept that challenge. And it says, and it is with this impossibility, tragedy takes its challenge. Its task is to transport us, let's see if I'm actually working here, is to transport us to the, highlight. Its task is to transport us to this inside-outside and strip away the veil concealing the dread secret. Stop. Greek tragedy in particular, according to Padel, with its circle dialectics of seen and unseen, inside and outside, exit and entrance, with a simultaneously internal and external, intellectual and circle somatic expression of contemporary questions about the inward sources of harm, knowledge, power, and darkness. Somatic means bodily, of the body. So like I was saying, that tragedy takes the inside of, like the inside of your soul, and brings it up, brings the monsters to the surface, makes you look at them. And it strips away the veil where you can hide, the veil you hide behind. Highlight this. But its tragedies, damage, is perceived not only by the body, the spirit too is deeply implicated in the tragic knowledge. Stop. When the hidden is brought back from the abyss, revealed in the art form of tragedy, the mind recoils in pity at the body's suffering. So the mind's like, holy cow, I can't believe you were suffering so much. And the body is racked by fear at the mind's recognition, where the body's like, the body can't believe the mind knows now what it's been going through. The imagination, which is essentially a comic alleviator, has no part in unifying the experience, and hence is paralyzed by what seems inevitable. Highlight. In the tragic realm, the protagonist cannot triumph, can only submit. The trap is sprung, the jig is up. The audience stands on the rim, so to say, and participates in a particular doubleness of the moment of discovery, wherein the realization remains unassimilated and unresolved, retaining the full force of its painful contradiction. Stop. Any questions about that?